Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charnley. This is the second video, God willing, in a series of videos on churches, historic churches in the county of Cheshire. And this is one of the most important churches in Cheshire in many ways. This is the church of St Michael, Shotwick, the church by the ford. It's also, Shotwick is where the Charnley family historically come from. There's a whole bunch of my ancestors buried outside by the church porch. We'll see them later. And it's a magnificent building. It's largely 14th century, although there has been a church here since at least the Norman Conquest. It has a lovely, lovely west tower, and it's got a wonderful collection of 18th century furniture. Box pews, three-decker pulpit, all that you need. So as we have a look around, we'll see just how marvellous this building is. And as I say, this is where my family comes from. This is where the Charnley family originate. When I'm shooting this video, I'm on my way up to North Wales for a holiday, so I'm not staying around in this part of the world today. It's just a stop on the way. But this is St Michael's, Shotwick. It's magnificent. It's got some medieval glass. It's got some bits of a medieval rood screen, but mostly it is this 18th century furniture. It hasn't been done by the Victorians. The Victorians missed it. And it's a magnificent church. So let's have a look around while I enthuse about St Michael's, Shotwick. So as usual, we start at the west end, and here we're in the tower. You can see here this rather lovely trumpet-style font. These are relatively common in this part of Cheshire, and you can see the box pews. When people visit a medieval church today, generally what we're seeing is a Victorian idea of getting back to something like the Middle Ages. That's not what you see here at Shotwick. What you see here is very much a church before the Victorians. The kind of church where my ancestors, and this is in fact the exact church my ancestors worshipped, and 18th century Charnleys coming back today would be able to find their old pew, I expect. There is here in the tower a tithe map with the field names. Now, our family were not rich enough to have any of their own fields here, so they're not mentioned on the map. You can see the apportionment. Here is the village in the middle, and it's still as tiny as it's seen on the map. It's a really lovely little place. It's not that much off the beaten track, actually. The main road is very, very close by, but it feels as though you're in the middle of nowhere. You have a lovely royal arms there in the tower. And so we'll proceed. We'll move up the north aisle first, and you'll see why immediately. This is the church warden's pew. They would have a seat at the back here to be able to monitor what's going on, because if somebody was misbehaving in church, the church warden would go and basically give them what for. And you see, he's got his canopy here, and there's a date here. This is 1709, and the church warden at the time, let's see if we can get them, yes, Robert Coxon and James Gilbart were the church wardens at the time. And then that canopy says 1702 rather, I think. But lower down we have the date 1673 with earlier church wardens. So this incorporates both early 18th and late 17th century material. I think there's a little kitchen or something enclosed in there at the back. Here we have the commandment boards, which have been displaced. It's one of the few things that has been changed here. But here we have the three-decker pulpit. Now, I've explained three-deckers before, how they work, that the bottom deck is where the parish clerk sits, and he leads the people in their responses in the liturgy. The middle deck is the reading desk, and that is where the clergyman, the minister, reads the prayer book service. And the top deck is the pulpit proper, and that's where he preaches from. The box pews, as I've said before, they're numbered. and each belonged to somebody. Somebody rented it, and you can see that they're all here, both in the aisle and in the nave. And this is very much as it would have been now. The walls have had wall plaster removed. There would have been plaster here in the Middle Ages and plaster in the 18th century. So that's one big thing the Victorians did do, was they took out the plaster. Now, you see, this pulpit is much fancier than the pews. The pews, I mean, they're not ugly, but they are relatively rough. The pulpit is very, very refined. This is because it wasn't made for this church. It was actually made for St. Peter's, Cheshire, which is the church in the middle of the city. Now, in the 19th century, an inspection and Archdeacon's visitation of the church here at Shotwick revealed the pulpit was in a horrible state. It was an awful thing, and they said, you've got to get a new pulpit. And the folk at St. Peter's were clearing out their old three-decker, and word came to church wardens at Shotwick, and they said, great, can we have your three-decker? So it came all the way down the river, and I expect it did come either down the river, or maybe it came by cart, and it was brought all the way to Shotwick and installed here. It's been there ever since. But this is actually a city church pulpit that has been moved to this village church. The pulpit before then was actually on the other side, but the north aisle is the more usual location, on the north side is the more usual location for these three-deckers. It's not used in the three-decker manner anymore because none of them are. The parish clerk has disappeared, but it's still got a pulpit light in there, so it's probably still used for services. What we have here is the remains of the rood screen. And it's just the base, all the painting's gone, the canopy is gone, and it's just a few bits and pieces. You can just see another bit there. But that's, like I say, rood screen, more likely parclose screen here. Although this church is unusual for England. This is a double church. You can see here you've basically got two naves, one either side of the other. And this is quite a common thing in North Wales, but it's really unusual in England. We are just over the border with Wales here, though, so that factors into it. But this is all that's left of the medieval screen. You can see box pews. You can also see here box pews. Some of them are different sizes. This one is a lot bigger. This would obviously be a richer family, a posher family, would have their big pew so they can have more people in there, more guests, and a bit more room. Organ, of course, there wouldn't be an organ here in the 18th century. This is quite a modern addition. Another big box pew. In fact, in the 18th century, there would have been a little band. And this band, they had 4 musicians who would stand around this. This is actually a fiddler's stand. This is a music stand. And you can have, as you can see here, 1 person on each side. So the music stand is that would have been probably at the back, with the musicians standing around it. Here we have the organ. You can see it's quite modern, this organ, and there's an inscription here which tells me that it's MCM. That's 1909. Now up here, you can just about see there, you've got a couple of angels. Well, you've got an angel and you've got the Virgin Mary, so that's the Annunciation. And this is actual medieval glass. In the 14th century, the windows of St. Michael's would have been crammed with coloured glass, with colourful glass like that, and this is kind of rare survival. Turn around and look all the way back here, and you see that marvellous three-decker. Three-deckers are great. We like three-decker pulpits. And this is very much, never mind the Tractarians, never mind the ritualists, this is a Protestant Church of England. We have the communion rails, and these, of course, again, are pre-Victorian rails. These are, look, 18th century. You've got your very, very tightly spaced balusters because we don't want the dogs getting in. Later, iron supports as they've got older. We've got underneath that tablecloth. We have a genuine 16th, 17th century table. The reredos is just a piece of 17th century panelling. These panels up there are taken from box pews that would have been here in the chancel. They have been taken out, and that is the major change, is they've taken out the box pews. In the chancel, we've got a St. Michael in the window there, and again some bits of medieval glass at the top. Here we have a memorial to the Reverend James Cottingham, B.A., 59 years vicar of this parish, born October the 3rd, 1803, died October the 11th, 1890. Tablet erected by his children. And we have here the Shotwick effigy. Now this is late 13th, early 14th century. It's part of a grave slab. And it's either the lid of a stone coffin or marked the burial of someone in a wooden one. It shows a man holding perhaps a heart, perhaps holding a chalice. It's hard to tell. But it was discovered in the walls during a restoration. So here we have this magnificent building. It's got an automatic light system, so they go off after a while. But there we are. And here another memorial. This is, near to this place lieth interred the body of Thomas Doe, Esquire, who died October the 12th, 1755, in the 59th year of his age. He was a man of great truth and sincerity, greatly beloved by all his friends, and acquaintances. So there we have. You can just see here. I don't think it appears on the video, but you can see the scored lines that were used by the sculptor, by the mason, to make sure that his letters are all in a line and not all over the place, which is again quite interesting. These are arches of some of the older part of the church, perhaps 13th century, and then you've got the main part is this wonderful whacking great 14th century structure with again all these lovely old box pews. You've just got these choir stalls being put in the chancel, and that's where that panelling on the east wall comes from. So that's the inside of St. Michael's, Shotwick, the church where, oh, there come the lights on again. And again, we've got these old memorials. These are to the Nevitt Bennett family. So there we have it. You can just see the inside of that door. That looks to me to be perhaps Norman, which would be good if it was. So that's the inside of St. Michael's. Now, before we go outside proper, just have a look at something in the porch. Just before we go out, in fact, this is a little notice board and stuff for the Prayer Book Society, which is a society that promotes the use of the 1662 Book of Common Prayer in the Church of England. And it's interesting to find that St. Michael's, Shotwick, has a connection with them. Yes, here we are in the porch, and you can see, although the porch timbers slightly obscure it, there is here a very definite Norman arch. The side column here has been robbed away. It's been removed at some point, but you've got this lovely carving here, and you see here the dogtooth moulding, and then this more geometric patterns, and the door is medieval. It's not Norman. But here we have, you often find these around the doors of old churches. These are arrow grooves. They're made from people sharpening their arrows at archery practice, and you've got them on both sides here. So that's just a little bit in the porch. Well, so here we are outside. Now, again, the wind's getting up a bit. We'll see when I pan the camera round that actually we are just by the old road that led down to the ford that led into Wales. So we're really on the Welsh border here. And behind me, you've got the magnificent church. This lovely tower, great big 15th century tower, and then you've got your nave, chancel. On this side it's nave and chancel, but it's still a double church. So we'll have a look around the outside and have a look at a couple of interesting memorials, at least interesting to me. So here we go, the outside of the church. You see they've got this lovely collection of old table tombs and memorials out here. And it's very much a sort of higgledy-piggledy look that was quite normal for these graveyards. A lot of them have been cleared up, tidied up by the Victorians, but not here, which is good. Church clock has stopped, needs winding. They've got this lovely big tower, just move so out of away from the trees so you can see the top of the tower. And there's a little corbel table lower down, so there's the top of the tower. Now over here we have this, see this quite unusual memorial sticking up here, standing up. Everywhere else you've got table tombs and you've got grave slabs, but there's only one of these memorials sticking up like this here. And there's a very good reason, of course, why I'm concentrating on it. So here we have, in hope of a joyful resurrection in eternal life, to eternal life, the mortal remains of the late Thomas Chalmley of Little Sawgall, who departed this life on the 22nd day of March 1869, I think. So that's, now this is, of course, yep, this is our family. There's a whole load of Chalmleys around here. Here we have lo, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, right, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Thus saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labours. So that's one of my ancestors. This I'm not sure if this big tomb is one of our people as well. No, it's an Ellison, but this one here, it's very overgrown with lichen, but this is definitely another Chalmley, and so's this one over here. And in fact this one is built upon and out of bits of old Chalmley graves. So this is the Chalmley plot here. You can just see there the corbel table, go away from the Chalmley burial plot, the corbel table, and nice gargoyles and things up there. It is a magnificent church, and it's very glad to find that our family is connected with it. Just look over there, you can see how, now that's the valley of the River Dee there. That's back in the Middle Ages, the water of the Dee, the marshes, would have come all the way up just to that line, that first line of trees, and that was all salt marsh. This was very much the church by the ford, and of course the Dee is silted up, the land's been reclaimed, but still, if you have a nice little low doorway here at the west end. It would have been a processional entrance in the Middle Ages, although it seems to us to be a little bit small for a processional entrance. You've got your little beer house, I expect, there, and now shed, church shed. And this is of course the new graveyard, when the old one was, as we saw, completely filled up. So we move around, and we can just see there that lovely low north church, because I say it's a double church, which is a very unusual thing in this part of the world. There is another one just up the road, which hopefully go to at some point at Burton on the Wirral, but not today. Now, although the Chalmley family comes from Shotwick, we have very much dispersed and diversified. There's a good number of us in Chester, where we were stalwarts of the Primitive Methodists for quite some time. So there we have it, St Michael's. Some members of the family were relatively poor. There was one who was the publican of the Oddfellows Arms in Chester. Some were quite rich, but my branch were the poor branch, which is fine. But here we have the grave of one of the rich branch of the family. This is Richard Chalmley of Blaken Hall. Wasn't that posh, it is basically a glorified farmhouse, or was a glorified farmhouse, but still, we have the Chalmleys of Blaken Hall. But this is the North Church. I say North Church because it is a double church. I say North door there, and these great big windows, all clear glass, because whatever else St Michael's Shotwick is, it's a Protestant church. It's the C of E as Reformed, not as imitating the Roman Catholics, but as we are a Protestant church, and therefore what we want is big windows and a nice big pulpit, big reading desk, because that's the kind of church this is. And here we are at the East End, and down to the War Memorial, and remains of I think some kind of industrial complex down there, but that was quite some time ago. And you've just got the one memorial for you've got just the one name, Frederick Walter Horwood, for at Arnhem, 18th September 1944 for the Second World War, and William Evans, John Mansley, Ralph Thomas, John Weston, Herbert Wilcoxon of this parish fell by action in the Great War, 1914-19. So not a huge number of people, but then this is a very, very tiny village. This is basically the village centre, and you can just see it's just a handful of cottages. There's an old manor house further up, and there we have it. Not a lot of people here, so not a lot of people to die in the war. So there we have it, St Michael's Shotwick, where the Chalmley family come from. Well, there we go, St Michael's Shotwick. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of the church where our family comes from, the little village, church in the little village where our family comes from, where, as you've seen, a number of us are buried. St Michael's is a special place, particularly special, of course, for the Chalmleys, but it's a special place, all things considered. A beautiful little church with, well, it's got a big church, isn't it? It's a beautiful village church that reflects the 18th century in more ways than it reflects anything else on the inside, but on the outside is gloriously 14th century. It's one where the Victorians have thankfully not been able to do their worst or do very much at all, and therefore it's a great place to see a Protestant Church of England. Well, I hope there's not too much wind on this because it's come sweeping down over the old salt marshes. But thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until the next time.